am here with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker. Yes, she does have a hyphen.
And I'm here with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin, who does not use a hyphen.
And we are Lightbringers, where we illuminate the deeper meaning of the crime-solving devil TV show. And yes, we're overthinking it.
Totally. We are. So we made it to season 2. Woohoo!
This is my favorite season. I was telling you offline that that season 2 as a whole is, I think, my favorite season of the entire show, even though there's stuff that I love that's still coming. But I feel like this season, from beginning to end, the arc that you see for the entire season just really resonates with me.
I couldn't pick a favorite. I just couldn't pick a favorite. But anyway, today we're talking about 201 and 202.
Everything's Coming Up Lucifer and Liar, Liar, Slutty Dress on Fire.
Right. Awesome. Right. So enter Tricia Helfner.
Yes. Who I read a review on the AV Club, and Latoya Ferguson is the reviewer who did all the Lucifer reviews. And she said, after having seen Tricia Helfer just in these first 2 episodes and Battlestar Galactica, and she means this as the biggest compliment, she's not entirely sure Tricia Helfer is human.
It's true. Yeah. There's something superhuman about her.
Yeah. And she's able to like channel that not quite rightness.
Yeah.
Like that uncanny valley.
Her teeth are so perfect. Like, I think she has more teeth than I do, and they're perfect. They're just, I don't know how to explain it, but something about the way that she talks with her teeth, it's just gorgeous. Anyway,
yes.
This is also where we first meet Mr. Set Out Bitch, though we don't know his name yet.
Lee. Yeah,
Lee.
we don't know any of his names yet.
No.
But yes, I was very excited for Mr. Set Out Bitch, because even though when you first meet him, you don't know that this is going to be someone you come to care about. Just early on, though, just the story that this guy is living, he's stealing from a jewelry store because he's crippled by debt. And it's honestly, like, I don't know how much the showrunners put into stuff, but like an indictment of our culture. And then the poor guy ends up in his underpants.
Yeah, with a tiara.
And his shoes tied together.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, he should not have been robbing the jewelry store.
Interesting though. Okay, so here's a overthinking it moment. The opening scene of this episode where this jewelry store robbery is happening, and Lucifer and Amenadiel show up and interrupt the robbery and like literally smack heads together. And then Lucifer tries his mojo on Lee. We don't know Lee's name yet, because he thinks that it's actually his mother inhabiting the body of someone who died and was resuscitated. Why would the mojo work on mom? Like, why did he even, like, the moment the mojo worked, he should have known it wasn't her.
That
right?
is a good point.
Like, that just felt like totally missed it the first time. And that's why we rewatch and overthink. But in this rewatch, I was like, that won't work on her. I mean, come on. She's the goddess of all creation.
Well, and it makes sense that he would use the mojo, because that would be a quick test to see, like, are you in there, mom? Nope. All right.
But that's not what
that's not how it is.
Actually says,
because he draws him out
as if it's her.
You want him to be free, as if it's her.
Yeah. So you escape from hell, and so yeah. It's. I think catch. Maybe that was a little hole in the writing.
Yeah. Good catch.
Yeah.
Ruining enjoyment since 1976.
Yep, that's me. That is me. So let's talk about the goddess, though. Let's talk about the goddess. You knew we would have to, given my academic background.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little bit of digging.
Mm-hmm.
Asherah is the name of the goddess. And what's really fascinating to me.
In what though? Where is the name? in
Wait,
Hebrew?
in Hebrew. So it
Okay.
comes up in a couple of places, where there are a couple of inscriptions in archaeological inscriptions that say this is dedicated to, it says the name that I don't want to say, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the unsayable name Adonai.
The name for Adonai. Yes.
Yes. So it says, belongs to Yud Kei Vav Kei and his Asherah. And there seems to be consensus among the scholars that this was a female deity, a consort of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
What's fascinating to me is that word Asherah, lowercase a, although it's hard to say because Hebrew doesn't have any capitalization, it shows up a lot in the Hebrew scriptures, and it gets translated as sacred pole. So every time like one of the patriarchs like takes down the sacred pole, like of the idolaters that's on the high place or whatever, the actual word that's being translated is Asherah. And it's also been associated then with trees. So there are some who think that maybe actually the tree in the Garden of Eden had some sort of connection with this consort, Asherah. It does seem pretty clear that there was some polytheism among the early Israelites that then got expunged from the records when during the Babylonian exile we became truly monotheistic in the way that we think of it today. And there are some textual scholars who think that there are moments when God is referred to in motherly ways, when God is referred to as a mother within the text, that some scholars think is sort of an integration of language that would have been used about Asherah, like into the persona of Adonai during the textual like
editing.
Yeah. the way that the text came to be over over time. So anyway, I think this is really kind of interesting, that it's really interesting to me, like historiography of it, right? That I know it came from the source text really for our showrunners is a comic book, as opposed to sort of Talmud talking about the Hasatan or that's the Satan, or the adversary. And it's interesting to me the actual original source text, right? So the Lucifer myth and the sort of rebellion is relatively late. Asherah and like a goddess as the wife to the creator god is very, very early. And I find that just really, really interesting, the way that like, it doesn't matter, there's a saying in Torah study, there's no before or after, it's all good. You can take, and that's definitely what has happened here, which, for someone who is a strict, I don't know, chronological, understanding that might be bothersome, but I just think it's really cool. Like, oh, here's a cool thing, mom.
Yeah.
And the idea that mom was hated and sent to hell, like that actually really resonates with what happened through the text, where the rabbis,
her name was erased basicly.
Well, she was just turned into almost like a symbol of idolatry and or completely expunged from the record. So I don't know, it's like, it feels ripe and resonant, even though it's kind of, there's some anachronism in terms of putting Asherah with Lucifer, and having her call him that is, I mean, I don't know. Can I call it anachronistic? I don't know. It's inauthentic from the source. And also it's maybe not, like, if we think about the metaphor and the text and the way that the literary life of this character, if I may be so bold, like the fact that she was sent to hell, she was in fact expunged.
Yeah. It's interesting too that the translation you're saying that it can also be associated with tree. and so that immediately I'm thinking like the Mother Earth,
the tree of life,
tree of life,
which becomes actually a metaphor for our Torah, which,
yeah,
you know, yeah,
yeah.
that's
So like
awesome.
there's a lot of really
The tree of life is for sure feminine as well. All her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Like there is a feminine, at least the language, the words are feminine.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just a lot there. Like it's a very lush metaphor.
Yeah.
And it actually, like, that now that I'm also thinking about it, like we see at the beginning of episode 2 of her trying to find a body. It feels like really appropriate that she ends up in the body of a Trisha Helfer, basically.
Right.
Just considering like the lushness of the idea of,
you know, it's also like, here I go overthinking it again. The cinematography too, in the penthouse, the chandelier is this funky wire tree.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a tree, but it's growing down from the ceiling with the lights. And I think later episodes, the director like spends a lot of focus on that tree, but it starts here in these 2 episodes where we come, especially as I think it's as we see Charlotte Richards' body possessed by the goddess for the first time, and he's playing all along the watchtower. It's the camera shot starts with that tree and then comes down to him playing. And so I don't know if the director knew about this tree connection. Probably not, but hey, that's awesome.
It is really cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also thinking about, like, you know, so she's wearing Maze's dress because they don't have anything for her to wear because she's covered in blood. And so there is this connection between both sexuality and death, because there's the man who mistakes her for a prostitute, and Lucifer sarcastically says, you can go ahead and kill this one. And so she immediately like,
yeah.
And that also, that feels very, that is what the goddess of all creation would be. Like the ability to bring life and the ability to destroy, all in one package. Like that just fits for me, because that is what, you know, ultimately nature is to me, and like the idea of creation, within it lies the idea of destruction. And so that's that particular moment, which again, I'm overthinking it. They were just thinking this is going to be funny, because it was. And like how skeeved Lucifer is, which is, I mean, is understandable. At the same time, I'm thinking of like the original like polytheistic belief systems had a lot of incest, not necessarily this, but I'm like Greek mythology, like everybody was marrying their sister, their mother, they're consorting with, you know, uncles, children, grandparents. I mean, well, just
for sure our patriarchs, there was like, you know, there was it wasn't siblings, but cousins for sure. Yeah.
So well, and like daughters and fathers.
Yes, right. Lot and his
daughters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and so that's something that like, you go for this very funny joke but that would be something, and like,
but that taboo,
the goddess is, yeah, that taboo is anachronistic. And the goddess is like oblivious to it,
and she's also, it's not her, it's Charlotte Richards' body. Like she is incorporeal, which is why Maze could never break her, right? Like, and so it's anachronistic, and it's also a little misplaced that he would be like,
Mhm.
I'm scarred forever now that I saw my mother
Yeah.
naked, because it's
Yeah.
not,
Because it's
right?
not his mother. Yeah.
It's Charlotte Richards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hilarious. Like when he's like, lose the dress. And because has not spent time with humans and does not understand the way that we communicate, she's like, all right.
Yeah.
Which it does kind of mean that Lucifer now knows what Chloe feels like.
It's true. Although he would never see it that way.
No. Oh, no. But like there was the episode with Tim Dunlear when he's trying to be charitable, and he's like, I'm gonna give you a shirt off my back, pants too. And Chloe's response is, and he's naked. She's like, you're not getting in my car like that. I was reminded of that because he lets her in the car.
Right. That's funny.
So like a little taste of what it's like to be a human around Lucifer.
So the other character that we get now is Ella. She's also introduced in this season. I think it was a good choice. I mean, Amy Garcia.
Watching season one, I sometimes when I think back on season one, I forget that she wasn't there sometimes, just because she seems like such an important part of the cast.
Yeah.
And of the way that they tell stories. And we were talking offline about why. And so
yeah, I think what we said, one of the things that I think that she brings, that the character brings, is she's the first character that we have that is a genuine believer. And I think that the introduction of her as a true believer, it helps keep it grounded, and it helps keep the show grounded and respectful of the fact that, Lucifer is this over the top crazy character, and his dad is God, and it's all about family drama, but they're playing with fire, right? They're playing with the core symbols of belief systems that are thousands of years old, and that people hold very, very dear. And so I think by introducing a character who is so endearing and so, I don't know, I just want to give her a hug. Or I want her to give me a hug, really.
And it'll be a good one too.
Right. Because she gives good hugs. Right. Like she's just so, not that she's perfect. I mean, we see her flaws, but she is good. And having that goodness also be the representative of belief, I think helps keep sort of the Lucifer universe from being too flip or too I don't know, disrespectful of their core.
It adds
content.
Gentleness.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And like you mentioned, it's in the second episode, he's trying to get a hold of Amenadiel, whose powers are leaving him. So that's why Amenadiel never answers. So he's been praying. And so he's like, all right, I need to make a call. And he goes over and prays in the corner. And like when Chloe realizes that's what he's doing, she's like, what? Just because it feels really weird to her, which I know is partially because I think she's just like, that's just outside of her, the way she lives. Like she doesn't know people who pray, like particularly not in the middle of a busy,
not in the middle of the day. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she knows people who go to church, but the idea that it would
or
be
may
something...
even like pray before bed, but not, take a break from a case and like, give me a second. And then also because Lucifer is who he is, like, the only thing she's afraid of is finding out what STDs he has. Like what? And then Ella's response when he's like, is this thing on? Did he go off for a wank? Just so sacrilegious. Ella's response is so gentle. It's like, like, it's okay. I get it. He like, I keep waiting for him to call to hear back too, but it's a one-way intercom. I know he hears you. And like, that's exactly what a person of faith would need to hear if they were feeling overwhelmed. And that's not what's going on with Lucifer, but she just is putting sunshiny faith into the world in a way that is just very positive.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about how when Chloe asks her about her faith, which I thought was actually pretty good use of exposition there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had a tough needle to thread with introducing this character, and they got her, like, they found a way to have her do an exposition dump, like moving from Detroit, 4 brothers, but no, you go straight for the like that's not easy to do, and it felt natural the first time I watched it. This time I was like, oh, that's a lot of exposition, but okay. So anyway, the fact that so when Chloe asks her about it, and Ella's like, might be a metaphor, might not, I don't know, and Chloe says,
Thought you'd be more certain,
more faith.
Mm-hmm.
And Ella's response being like, no, doubt is an important part of the process, and my aunt, who's a nun, told me that. I really appreciate that, and in part that's because I am often overwhelmed by a certain type of religiosity that we get, especially here in America, where faith is required, is like the barrier to entry, which means that you cannot ever be questioning, you cannot ever have doubt, because that means that you'd be done. Like
you failed in some way.
You failed.
Yeah.
And that's and I think a lot of people who are not people of faith themselves think that's what religion is, because that brand of religion is often very loud.
Yeah, that's the word.
They're not very necessarily numerous, but they are loud. And
yeah.
So this gives an example of what it means to be a person of faith without being someone who is going to be judgmental or require things from people that they're not willing to give, or proselytizing, or any of those.
It also feels actually respectful in the same way that including Ella at all feels to me respectful of the show, to keep the universe grounded by having her faith be that kind of faith. It's not this, like, one could imagine a non-religious writer sort of using this to poke fun, right? Mm-hmm. And to imply that though the believers are somehow stupid or duped, mm-hmm. or I don't know, like, but somehow I can imagine writing it such mm-hmm. that the believer is condescended to. And mm-hmm. by saying like, no, wrestling with it is part of it, mm-hmm. it allows a more fully formed faith and a more fully formed character, I think, mm-hmm. to inhabit that space. And to me, that feels like another level of respect, and tells me as well that someone in the writing team is in some way a believer, mm-hmm. like struggles with it, wrestles with it, has doubts, but this is not a bunch of atheists writing this, I don't think.
Yeah.
Not or Church of Darwin or whatever the spaghetti monster thing is, like.
Yeah. Or actually, I think that they tend to be pretty respectful. I think it's the teapot people. The I can't remember who, Christopher Hitchens, one of them said, like, I could posit that there's a teapot that's orbiting outside of Saturn. And I believe that teapot is there, and there's nothing you can do to prove to me that it is not there. And that's what belief in God is like.
Oh, that's
and unfair. It's so reductive and unfair and unreasonable.
That's a flattening.
And yeah. It's a flattening of what faith is and what it can do.
That's exactly what we're saying, is that the Lucifer writers intentionally did not flatten faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I think is really I think one of the reasons why this show has been so popular and has resonated with people so much is that it does come from a place of respect for people in all of their forms. So the faithful, those who are not faithful. There's I saw Tom Ellis talking about how like we're open to all types of sexuality on this show, and sadly there's not as much gay male representation as one would like, but there's a hell of a lot more than there would have been if they made the show in the 90s. There's this like we talked about how they show so many different strong women who are strong in different ways. It's not one type of strength. There's many types of strength, including, I have to say, when Linda
confronts
Amenadiel. Yeah. When she confronts him. That was awesome. And like, I was thinking about how like revolutionary is a little too strong, but I'm just, in a lot of shows, they would have just like, oh, that Amenadiel, everything's better now, and like would have just expected her to just accept like, well, this is what happened. This is who he is. But she got to have her moment of what you did was wrong and harmful, and it is unacceptable. And like she said to him, you're going to get karma. And he like, because this is how the show works, he takes it very literally, like, oh, maybe that's why I'm losing my wings. And apologizes to her in part for selfish reasons, which is, I think, part of the reason also why it doesn't work, fix things. Yeah. But he does, from her point of view, offer a sincere apology that allows her to move on from it rather than it just being.
She accepts. I mean,
she accepts. Yeah. And I like how she said it, therapists truly understand what it means to make a mistake.
Not that you'd know.
So
had to get that final dig in.
She accepts, but she also makes it clear, like, I'm not going to forget.
Yeah.
And that's like, I appreciate that too. Like, you can forgive without forgetting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of the, like, what we're talking about here with the introduction of Ella and the way that characters are treated throughout this show is part of the reason why so many people love it so much. Because we can see ourselves somewhere in the show, and we can see that there's a place for us, and that we're deserving of respect, that we have something to offer, and that relationships may be hard, but we can work at them together.
Yeah. I think we overthink it, but I do have my final fluff that I want to.
You've got your final fluff.
It's not literally fluffy.
Okay.
I want to talk about the balcony of the penthouse, which is the place you go to talk to God. Like, we now with the liar, liar, slutty dress on fire, the very final moment of that episode is Trisha Helfer looking up at the sky and smirking. And so that is now like one of many times that on that balcony, someone, usually Lucifer, looks up at the sky and like engages with God. And I just think that's really interesting. And like, I don't know, it's kind of cool. Like the whole idea of God in the heavens above is, certainly from that source material we're talking about before. But still, like, they're just like looking up as if you're looking someone in the eye, like, I don't know. Trisha Helfer, really, she pulled it off.
So I have to say, I feel like there should be like an Emmy specifically for like a single look, or like, so like, I feel like she needs an Emmy for that smirk in the same way Ted Danson needs an Emmy just for his evil giggle at the end of season 1.
That's so awesome. Like, I want that on a ringtone, that Ted Danson laugh. Like when you call me, it'll go. Oh man.
So yes, I think that smirk is awesome, and that's that sense of like the balcony of the penthouse is outdoors, it's high up, and like it would be kind of an ideal place to have a conversation.
I mean, it is the spot after Father Frank died, you know, like there's like, that is the spot. And then it'll be interesting as we like move forward, because that there are other things that happen then on that balcony, like when at the end of season 4, when he's like, no, I gotta go. Like they have their goodbye on that balcony. So I don't know. It's a pregnant place. It's pregnant with possibilities. And
I do have one other thing I'd like to mention. That is not fluffy, unfortunately. Dan. It's only been a couple of days from the end of season 1 to the beginning of season 2, and nothing has happened to Dan.
Yeah. He's been demoted. He has been demoted.
But all he admitted to is
stealing
inappropriately checking out.
Yeah.
But that a weapon, which was then used to kill someone. So you'd think there would be, and it's another exposition. Like, well, LAPD just wants to sweep it under the rug
after everything that happened with Malcolm.
After everything that happened with Malcolm, and this is one of those, like, you and I have talked offline a little bit about, like, sometimes the aftermath of stuff is just like, wait, no, you can't just say it's fine. And that was actually Latoya Ferguson, the reviewer on AV Club, was saying, she's like, I can like suspend my disbelief on, like, when you got angels and, you know, the goddess of all creation inhabiting a body. I can't suspend my disbelief, like, this is all that happens, unless they're actually actively trying to make a statement about policing, which I really don't
at that point, I don't think they were.
No. And so, and it, like, as a viewer, I was glad to see Dan. Like, I liked his character, even when I hated his character. Like, I never actually hated him. I was always rooting for him, because even as terrible things he did, you could see he came from, in general, a place of trying to do the right thing and sometimes getting in over his head. So, like, gaslighting Chloe came about because he was trying to protect her. That's why he shot Malcolm. And then he didn't know how to come clean. And so path of least resistance was to gaslight her. And, like, now that's okay, but it's comprehensible. So anyway, so as a viewer, I was glad to see Dan, and I don't think that they made the wrong decision in doing that. But that is something that I feel like, if these episodes had been made in 2021 instead of 2016, even though you'd think by 2016 we knew, you'd think by then.
Many of us did.
Yeah, I mean, but enough didn't, that there was no sense. And as you said, like you mentioned, and we'll get to it eventually, but in season 6, there is an episode that really takes on the issue of policing. And DB Woodside had to make himself a nuisance to make sure that episode was made. So, and that's what it takes, and that's a shame. But I just wanted to mention that. So we should do one more fluff so we don't end on a, like, bummer note. Cheesy noodles. What is this goo that this child is, or that this boy over. Is? Are you watching porn? It's just the amount of cheese
in the cart.
Like, yeah. I live in Wisconsin, and that is a weekend here, but
it's a lot of cheese.
It's a lot of cheese. Like,
and then she burned it.
And then she burned the top of it.
Bless her heart.
Yeah. Well, cooking's not easy if you've never done it before. Yeah, I mean, she gave it the old school try.
Yeah. All right, I gotta run.
Yep.
I will see you next week.
See you next week.